In 1993, I co-owned a gas station in an obscure small town that you've probably never heard of. With few employees, I often found myself working the register late into the night. Though we didn't operate as a 24-hour gas station, we kept the doors open until 3 a.m. I can vividly recall one particular night when the clock struck 2:30 a.m., and there had been no customers for quite some time. Taking advantage of the lull, I began organizing the store, preparing to close up for the night. As I stood in a corner of the building, I was startled by the sound of the door chime, signaling the arrival of a customer. Curious, I walked around a shelf to greet the man who had entered. He was tall and slender, dressed in blood-stained sweatpants and a light-colored t-shirt. Naturally, I was concerned and wondered what had happened to him. The man, visibly agitated and breathing heavily, explained that he had just been in a car crash. I reassured him that we had a first aid kit and offered to call an ambulance, but he adamantly refused any medical assistance or involvement of the police. Instead, he requested to use the bathroom, and I pointed him in its direction. As he walked away, he repeatedly told me not to call the police, which began to raise my suspicions. I started thinking about the situation more critically and realized that despite the bloodstains on his clothes, I hadn't seen any visible wounds on him. Moreover, his movements seemed too normal for someone who had just been in a car crash. My heart started racing as I rushed outside to the payphone on the side of the building and dialed 911. A female dispatcher answered, and I quietly explained the strange encounter with the man. During the call, she informed me that a stabbing homicide had occurred in the nearby town only 30 minutes ago. When I asked for a description of the suspects, I was horrified to hear her describing the man I had just encountered in my gas station. Tall, skinny, in gray sweatpants, and a light-colored t-shirt. Terrified, I requested immediate police assistance and was advised to stay in my car with the doors locked. In a matter of minutes, 5 police cars with officers wielding drawn guns surrounded my store. I gave my statement to one of the officers outside while they prepared to enter the building. As the police entered, there was a sudden commotion from inside the gas station. Apparently, the man in the bathroom had attacked one of the officers with a knife as they opened the door. Fortunately, they were able to subdue him with the help of several other officers. He was handcuffed and placed inside a patrol vehicle. Curiosity got the better of me, and years later, I decided to look into the man's background. It turns out he was charged with the murder of a Dairy Queen employee in the neighboring town. He is currently serving a life sentence in prison. In the wake of that unsettling encounter, a cloud of unease settled over me, casting a shadow on my fond memories of the cabin in the woods. The incident left me with lingering questions and a deep sense of vulnerability. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone might still be out there, lurking in the dense wilderness, and the uncertainty gnawed at my mind. Despite the passage of time, my curiosity and concern only grew. I yearned to unravel the mystery of that morning, hoping for closure and a chance to comprehend the truth behind the stranger's intentions. But I also couldn't ignore the fear that lurked within, warning me to stay away from the remote wilderness. Months turned into years, and my visits to Alaska became infrequent. The once cherished hunting trips with my uncle and Simon had transformed into distant memories tainted by fear and suspicion. Whenever the topic of the cabin arose, I tried my best to change the subject or divert the conversation. I didn't want to explain my unease to my family or friends, fearing they would dismiss it as a product of an overactive imagination. Life moved on, and I tried to bury the unsettling episode deep within my consciousness, hoping it would eventually fade away. Yet, the sense of unfinished business lingered like an unresolved puzzle. Was the stranger merely a lost hiker, seeking shelter in the woods? Or was it something much more sinister, an attempted crime concealed by the remote setting? I found solace in avoiding the cabin altogether. Each time my uncle invited me for a hunting trip, I came up with excuses, deftly avoiding the haunting memories that still lurked in the recesses of my mind. My reluctance to return to the once beloved cabin affected my relationship with my uncle, who couldn't understand my sudden aversion. As the years passed, my curiosity outweighed my trepidation, and I started researching any news or local incidents that might have shed light on what I had witnessed. But the vastness of Alaska and its wilderness offered no easy answers. The internet held no records of any reported crime matching the circumstances of that chilling morning. Unable to quell my thoughts, I confided in a close friend about the experience, hoping that sharing the burden would provide some relief. My friend listened attentively, understanding the turmoil that had been consuming me for years. While empathetic, he encouraged me to let go of the past, assuring me that dwelling on the unknown wouldn't bring closure. Deep down, I knew he was right. Dwelling on the past only served to fuel my anxiety and fear. It was time to make peace with the unknown, to acknowledge that some mysteries might never be solved. With newfound determination, I decided to face my fears head-on. I mustered the courage to return to the cabin, determined to confront the memories that had haunted me for so long. As I stood before the familiar wooden structure, memories flooded back, both pleasant and haunting, but I refused to let fear dominate my emotions. During my stay, I wandered into the woods, retracing my steps from that fateful morning. The tree stand was still there, unchanged by time, and I found myself lost in thought. I acknowledged that I might never know the truth, and that realization brought a bittersweet acceptance. Alaska's vast and untamed wilderness held many secrets, and my encounter was one of them, a fragment of a larger story lost in the expanse of nature. I decided to honor the memory of my beloved hunting trips by cherishing the happy moments spent in the cabin, rather than being consumed by the unknown. As the years went by, my fondness for the cabin in the woods was rekindled, and I occasionally returned to relive the cherished memories. While the question of that haunting encounter remained unanswered, I discovered a newfound appreciation for life's mysteries. Some things are meant to be left to the enigmatic beauty of the wilderness, reminding me that we can't always control or comprehend every aspect of the world around us. And so my life continued, enriched by a sense of acceptance and a newfound respect for the unpredictable journey it had taken. The cabin in Alaska remained a special place, not just for the thrill of hunting, but for the profound lessons it had imparted on me, a reminder that sometimes the most profound experiences are those that remain shrouded in mystery. In the past, I worked as a moving truck driver, transporting people's belongings to their new homes while they traveled by plane. It was a decent job, albeit a lonely one, driving alone on desolate highways across the country. One particular night, I was driving down an isolated stretch of highway in the desert when I spotted a figure walking on the side of the road. It was a rare sight to encounter anyone in such remote areas, especially at that hour. As I approached, I realized he was a hitchhiker, holding out his thumb in the hope of getting a ride. Instantly, a wave of empathy washed over me as it reminded me of my own struggles in my early 20s when I had financial constraints and no vehicle. Recalling those tough times, I felt compelled to help the guy out. He looked like an ordinary person, slightly dirty clothes, carrying a suitcase, and I saw nothing suspicious about him. I pulled the truck over, rolled down the window, and cautiously, he approached. His eyes reflected weariness mixed with hope. I offered him a ride, explaining that I was a moving truck driver and had some extra space. He gratefully accepted, placing his bag in the back seat before hopping in up front. We exchanged a few words, and I could sense his gratitude for the assistance. It felt good to extend a helping hand to someone in need, especially someone who reminded me of my own past struggles. Curious about his destination, I asked him where he was heading. His response raised some concerns as he mentioned, "Anywhere but back there." I assumed he referred to a small town I had passed about 20 minutes ago, but to be safe, I played dumb and asked him to elaborate. Unexpectedly, he replied that it was because of some really bad choices and a lack of regret. Feeling a bit uneasy, I laughed nervously to ease the tension and decided to dig further, given his cryptic answer. I asked him to clarify what he meant, and in a sudden shift of demeanor, his eyes locked onto mine, and his smile vanished. He lifted his shirt, revealing a large hunting knife tucked into his pants. Fear gripped me as he confessed that his suitcase didn't contain clothes, but rather the body of someone named Enlisted. The full name I regretfully don't recall. Terrified, I tried to maintain composure, focusing on the road while my mind raced with dread. I knew I had made a grave mistake by letting this man into my truck, but I couldn't risk confronting him about his claims. I needed to escape the situation, and as luck would have it, I saw a gas station up ahead. I quickly made up an excuse about my trunk acting up and pulled into the parking lot. As soon as the truck came to a stop, I hastily got out of the driver's seat and rushed into the store, leaving the hitchhiker behind. Frantically, I told the cashier to call the police and explained the terrifying encounter. The cashier promptly dialed 911 while I waited at the back of the store. After what felt like an eternity, 2 officers arrived at the store, and I provided them with my statement, urging them to search my truck. To my horror, the hitchhiker and his suitcase had vanished. He had disappeared into the desert, and despite organizing a search, the police couldn't find him. To this day, I still wonder what was truly in his suitcase and if he had actually committed a crime. The police speculated that he might have been mentally ill and was speaking nonsense, but my initial impression of him indicated otherwise. I've come to accept that I'll never know the truth behind that chilling encounter.